Hi, I'm Brian Fanzo, known as iSocialfanz on the Twitters. And Julie asked me to kind of talk and kind of give some feedback on some questions that she had that she would love for me to focus on. And originally she had asked for me to kind of reply to an email. We had gone back and forth. And as someone that is a chief digital strategist and someone that enjoys talking and doing video more than writing, and I think there's some additional value there, I decided to put together this video, kind of walk through some of the questions that Julie wanted me to address, and hopefully it'll help you guys embrace social and technology and understand a little bit more of what I make work, and hopefully learn something from it. If not, I promise that I will talk fast, because that is my little side is I talk fast and tweet faster is my byline. So we'll go ahead and get into the questions. It says, can you describe your role as a technology community evangelist? So my role as a technology evangelist, and now into my new role as a chief digital strategist at Broadsuite, is really focusing on, if you know, familiar with Guy Kawasaki or Robert Scoble, they're kind of the pioneers from technology evangelist side. And I like to be the one I'm the voice of the community and the customer, as well as kind of relating and really understanding what the community cares about, what problems they have, who they are kind of working with, what they need to do. And my experience is I'm a tech geek and now a dad of 3. As I think you can hear my kids in the background. Hopefully it's not too loud. But my experience is a technology background, and then focused on social business tools and internal communities. And really I bridge that internal community to the external community to really, we want to talk about brands and customers relating with companies. And to me, that's done through social employees and connecting communities. So my job really it's a fun job. It's a kind of a dream job from my standpoint, is I get to talk to people, hear what they need help with, understand and listen to their feedback, and then go get it done. My last job, I worked really closely with the product team as well as the customer service and sales teams. And I created a dotted line culture, which I think I'll talk a little bit more about later on in this. So the second one, it says, show you care is your professional philosophy. What examples do you provide the best to exemplify your approach? So show you care, hashtag that I use that you see over my shoulder, is actually a hashtag that I started to realize that when someone would ask me for advice, or a lot of the blog posts that I would read, or when I'm consulting or working with personal brands, I was working with some executive leaders, and they would say, well, what do I need to do to make people relate or care, or make people relate or want to learn more? And for me, I kept saying, we need to show or find ways to show you care. And what that means is, rather than just messaging someone on LinkedIn and saying, please connect with me, take the time ahead of time to understand and relate, look up what they care about, make it personal. So instead of saying, hey, please connect with me because I'm a person you trust, you go and say, hey, I see you have a similar passion for sports and we both work in the social business field. I think we should connect. And the fact that you took the extra time to show you care will give them the reason to give you their time, because ideally it's about establishing that relationship, and so much of it is doing above and beyond. So showing you care for me, and what I focus on is really, it's a book, Jab, 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 Right Hook by Gary Vaynerchuk, that's on my mantle there behind me. Talks about giving and giving and giving more before you make that right hook. And for me, it's all about showing you care is ways of giving. And there's so much noise, you must find ways to stand out from that noise. So curating content is the next question, and that's a personal passion of mine. I believe it goes into the show you care philosophy, because so many people are sharing links and providing information, and there's so much content out there today. Is sometimes it's almost better to curate a piece of content and give your insights on someone else that already did a great job posting a piece of content than it is taking the extra time and creating your own blog and then adding to the noise. So when it comes to content curation, I love to use multiple tools. By far my number one resource is actually a private Twitter list that I add people to that provide really good content. And then I also use the tools into a tool that is like a Pocket or a Read Later. And that tool actually allows me to, about 1 hour a night or in the morning, I spend kind of going through on my iPad on Flipboard or one of the other news aggregator sites and looking for content that I think is of value. And then I add it into my little repository, and then I curate it from depending on what I want to do. Oftentimes, I'll create a new graphic, or maybe I'll turn something that's really valuable concept into a slide share. And I call that concept upcycling of content, because I think we have plenty of great content. And if you could just focus on that great content, whenever you make great content or you find great content, if you can find ways of upcycling it, which means creating new things with it. So if it's a blog post, making a video about it, or making a slide share, or creating maybe a new infographic from it, upcycling it in different ways, because if the content's great, not everyone has seen it, and you want to get that in front of as many eyes as you possibly can. And too often we focus about creating content for content's sake, and I think sometimes curating it or upcycling it is of much more value. So connected on social media. How many platforms do I utilize to produce my content? So I'm a geek. I'm a tech guy. I'm also I'm a Apple fanboy from the standpoint of I've built an ecosystem of Apple tools. But I often, when someone asks my title being a technology evangelist, I focus a lot less on the tools, focus a lot more on my goals and my strategy, and then I find tools that make it work. I don't believe there's just one tool. A majority of the tools that I use are actually free. Even at my last company, when I had a very nice sized budget to utilize tools, I had some great tools for some of the bigger tasks like engagement management and ticketing with different employees or different customer service angles. But for me, I use a lot of free tools. There's tools like Scoop.it, Scoop.it. Meddle is another one that's a really good tool. There's the idea of tools for me is finding ones that work for you. I'm an app geek. I download lots of things. I'm willing to learn and try new tools. So when you think about ways to connect on social media, I like to, the biggest piece for me, my number one advice is learn how to social listen. So I use tools like Google Alerts, which is free, and Hootsuite, where I build different search lists that anytime someone mentions my first name and last name, or my first name without a space in my last name, I will know about it. And that's important to me because oftentimes that's the way that I show I care, is that I'm listening beyond just someone having to call out and mention me. So that's something I definitely recommend. Best practices for offer to host and participate in Twitter chats. So Twitter chats are interesting. It's definitely something that I've embraced, and it's transformed my social and Twitter engagement. I, like many people, were around the 2,000 follower mark around 8 months ago, and I was following and enjoying Twitter, but once I started really engaging and following these Twitter chats, it really did expose an entire new way of engaging. And we all want to find social communities. And for me, these social communities, these Twitter communities, are these chats. So if you're looking for chats, follow hashtags. It's all about hashtags. I have a video talking about the basics of hashtags and how you can find new chats. I also kind of run a calendar myself, a public Google calendar that has 40 plus chats that I kind of keep an eye on. I don't participate in every one every week, but I think that's important. And when you're talking about hosting a Twitter chat, I think before you host Twitter chats, you must participate in other ones, understand what your community has. Too often we have chats that are popping up by brands or people that they want to jump in on this craze. And for me, it's less about hosting it because, to be honest, my value in the ones that I host, which I host a couple of them, I get a lot less value out of those than the ones that I just participate in. Because for me, it's about the giving and the engagement and the community. And my tip for Twitter chats is find one, listen and see what people are talking about, and engage. Ask questions. Tell them, introduce yourself. Don't be just the lurker. It's okay to listen and lurk at first, but no, these chats are about giving. Everyone shows up that same hour every week to give back to each other, to build a community of learners. The next one out here says, if you could only follow 10 leaders on Twitter, who would they be? So this is probably a better one to write down. But some of the big leaders, the big names that have big followings, because I was always the guy that figured out that a lot of the ones with big followings don't do a good job of engaging or aren't human on Twitter. And I really only recommend following those that are engaging and active, not just link dropping or just spamming you with their sales of their books or things. So some ones that I recommend, Vala Afsfar, and like I said, I'll make sure to get this list. Brian Kramer, Ted Rubin is a great one. Tim McDonald on Community is another good one. There's also some great people like Kim Garst, who does amazing things with Facebook, and she's definitely a must follow on Twitter and Facebook for tips and tricks. Rebecca Radice is another one that is very big and does a lot of things on Google+, but following her content is tremendously valuable. And then, if you look at the books over my shoulders, those are ones that really have changed and had a big influence on me. So Gary Vaynerchuk, Gary V on Twitter, not only author, video blog, and he does so many great things kind of exposing the secrets of social. Jay Baer, who wrote the book Utility, a must-read for anyone who wants to understand the power of content. He also has convinceandconvert.com, which is a great book, or a great website and content. Simon Sinek is, of course, great, not only for leader advice, but he uses social really well. And then the other book that you see behind me is Social Employee by Cheryl Burgess and Mark Burgess, another great book and reference I recommend for everyone, not only in employee advocacy, but in social in general, just in today's economy. And then, my project and where I work with, I'm honored to be partnered with Daniel Newman, who wrote the book Millennial CEO. So Daniel Newman, UV is his Twitter handle. Another great follow, provides lots of great content, insights from social media marketing to management to millennial leadership and so on. So those would be my 10. I think that was 10. I will make sure to get that list so it's not a rapid writing down session here. Which conferences do you view as being ones every practitioner should attend? Conferences are a big thing for me, but we all don't have the budget. We all don't have the ability to fly to all of them. So my first recommendation is every single conference, to attend every one. Now you're like, Brian, that's crazy. How would I do that? I don't have the money. Well, you don't need the money. Social Today connects you with every conference you need to. So find out the hashtag that they're using for a conference, put it in your feed, add it to a stream on Hootsuite or in whatever tool you're using, and start following that hashtag. You'll be amazed, not only of finding new people to follow, but you'll be actively engaging and following along with conferences that you can't attend to in person. Another recommendation I have is finding those really good conferences and events that aren't really about the speakers as much as the people. So Social Media Marketing World I went to last year for the first time, and it was amazing. Not only did the speakers and guests collaborate with the people that were there, but for 2,000 plus people that were in attendance, the networking, the sessions before and after, the parties afterwards, were all focused on engaging and icebreakers and really getting to know each other rather than making it like celebrities and awkward. Another great conference is Social Fresh. Social Fresh is run by Jason Keith, and it's a one-track conference, which I really like. And he has an East version and a West version. The West one coming up here in October. I'll make sure to provide the link that you can get a discount rated to that one in San Diego. But that's a great conference. It's one track, which means you don't have to bounce around to a bunch of different rooms. Everybody sits in the same room and hears the same speakers. And it's great because it's a lot of people that are living and doing social today, or community, or digital. They're giving you their real advice and tips because that's their job. It's not only just people that have written a book 5 years ago and haven't touched or worked in the real world in a long time. So those are two ones that I definitely recommend. Also a big fan of Content Marketing World or CM World. Hashtag is a great one to follow. Follow that hashtag throughout the year. It seems to be a great event. And there's a couple other ones that will pop up throughout the year, but number one recommendation is finding those hashtags and following along when those events are happening. How has content marketing and storytelling changed the social media field? Well, to me, I wrote a blog about this on my LinkedIn account, and it's my passion is that I have a passion for change. And what that means is I really do love teaching change and empowering people to change. And how I do that is by storytelling, by giving insights and teaching people that side. So I was asked if I had to give any millennial advice. I'm a millennial. I'm an older millennial. I'm barely a millennial. It's not getting by a year. But I think millennial is more of a state of mind, someone that wants to make a difference, wants to change the world, wants to make an impact. And if you want to do that, if you had one skill, I have 3 daughters, and if there's one thing I'll make sure that they embrace and learn to get better at, is it's storytelling. And that goes for everything from ordering your fast food. If you storytell in a right way, you don't get your order messed up very much. And it also goes to social media, because social media, not only transparency and storytelling, but people aren't following your avatar, they're following you, the user, the person. So for me, when social really took off is when I embraced who I was, understood what my story was, and just was myself. I didn't focus or waste my time trying to think about what I was or who I was. I really focused on being myself. So the next one here, it says, how is content for students starting to build their professional social media presence? What advice can you offer? Well, it kind of goes into that previous question of finding your voice. You don't have to know it ahead of time, but don't be afraid to just put things out there. Blog. I'm not a great blogger or writer. I have all kinds of grammar problems. I talk like I write like I talk. So not fast, but I write in ways that I talk. But I couldn't believe how much that resonated with people because I'm just myself. I'm 24/7 who I am. And so I recommend, starting there, starting small. I'm a big fan of being on every social network, but that's because I've grown to that size. So find a social network that you're comfortable with, that fits in your workflow, and just jump in. Be yourself. Tweet stuff that you might not have tweeted out before. Post to Facebook things that you didn't before. The greatest part about social media is that it's the perfect A/B testing environment. It's an open community. And the other thing that's nice is you can unfollow the haters or those that aren't kind. So you have that mute button against bullies that we've always kind of wanted to have in school. You have the ability to mute or get rid of that noise of those haters. So think about it that way. There's very little to lose in that environment when you embrace being yourself and just kind of testing things out from social. If you're thinking from a professional standpoint, LinkedIn is where to go. And I like to say that you treat your digital footprint like your first impression. So if you buy new clothes for an interview, if you make sure that you look good, you have business cards, if you're willing to spend that money, you must invest in your digital footprint, which means having an active presence on LinkedIn, making sure your resume represents who you are. The key there is really investing the time to make that work. So if you don't have social media accounts today, I recommend using your first name and last name. It's very easy to find, as well as if you change jobs or roles, you don't have to change your accounts and change your footprint. I've been iSocialfanz for a long while now, so for me, it's just what I've definitely adopted. But I spend a lot of time searching for a lot of people that are reaching out to me without knowing what my handle is. So I recommend first name, last name as for your accounts as well. It's definitely helps with not only social SEO, but your digital footprint. And spend the time, be yourself. The last question it says here, what change do you want to see happen for business currently utilizing social media? Trust. I hope and pray that leaders and managers and us as users begin to trust not only each other and the community, but everyone that's using and embracing social. Social really isn't it's a tool to communicate. It's not it's a skill to actually learn and do, but when you use social media, you're still talking to another person. So focusing on one-to-one communications in this crazy world of 7 million followers tweeting every minute, that's important. It's human to human. Ted Rubin, a book and a mentor to me, wrote the book Return on Relationships, and Brian Kramer wrote a book, Human to Human, and those two are very important books to me, and that's something that I hope that more people embrace. I'm just finished up one of the books that's talking about the social executive, and really that's about trust. One of the neat things and insights that I give is that when I coach and work with personal brands and leaders, they're not afraid of their employees being social because they're going to fail or say something stupid, because that's what happens. Life happens that way. They're actually afraid of them succeeding because they're going to leave, or their money's not going to be well spent. And the thing is if you trust those employees and you're providing that value and you're giving them that culture, when they do leave, they're your greatest advocates. They're your greatest story of success. So the number one thing I hope that changes in business is really we focus more on the trust of social rather than the exposing all of these one-off things that people do incorrectly. Or people make mistakes every day in life. It's not just on social. And too often the haters like to point out the downsides, the privacy, and the things that fail. But I think it's more important that if we embrace trust in who we are as a community, together as a social community, we can change the world. So that hopefully is under 20 minutes of me sharing my insights there. Once again, iSocialfanz on Twitter. I'm always open for answering questions. I run a community video series called iSocial Talks where I answer questions from the community. So feel free to submit those questions and I'll answer them on a shorter video series than this. But good luck to you. Dive in, be yourself. show you care, and I will see you on the socials. Cheers.